Babylon affected. They, little by little, took over and finally destroyed Jerusalem later on. And so, what we talked about the main thing that we can get from this book. Do you remember?
God is in control.
God is in control. So we see that all the way through the affairs on this earth. God is in control. He's involved in leaders or picked in countries, whether good or bad, because God wants us to learn lessons on this earth and to seek out Him rather than things on this earth which are always in flux and unpredictable. There's a lot more than just our short lives here. Okay, so we have Daniel. So they start out with 3 years of education. We figured they're probably somewhere in their mid to late teens to start out with, in age. This is typical when people are taken captive, is to sort out those that seem very promising for helping out in work in the country that they're going to. So they didn't just get put in prison somewhere and left. Their idea is to get some extra benefit from these captives. So in this choice of the young men, they're put into this training for 3 years. And the first thing that comes up is that since these people or these young men are being trained for their service, they were given the choice food to eat, similar to what the king would get. And that's what they were supposed to eat, because that would make them more healthy, able to serve and to have good appearance and whatever. Well, that doesn't work out so well, because some of the things that the Chaldeans ate they were forbidden under God's law. So these young people have to make a choice. Are they going to go for this fancy food that I guess you could say might be preferable by a lot of people? Or are they going to try to figure out some way to get around it? Well, they decided that they wanted to see if there was a way that they could get around this without having to eat that food. So they're in first chapter of Daniel, starting in verse 8. Daniel made up his mind that he would not defile himself with the king's choice food or with the wine which he drank. So he sought permission from the commander of the officials that he might not defile himself. And so they went to, obviously they couldn't go to the king. Word probably already came down that you don't want to upset this king. He does bad things if you get him angry and don't do what he commands. So they go to the commander of the officials, and of course he doesn't want to get his head cut off either. And kind of doesn't want to actually let them do this, but Daniel gives them an option here. It says that let's go ahead and do this test for 10 days, it's mentioned here in verse 14. So they're going to be tested for 10 days, and then see what happens. So that's about where we left off. So in verse 14, so he listened to them in this manner and tested them for 10 days, and at the end of 10 days, their appearance seemed better, and they were fatter than all the youths who had been eating the king's choice food. So the overseer continued to withhold their choice of food and their wine, and the wine they were to drink, and kept giving them vegetables, that's a New American Standard, we see that basically just meant not meat. Especially the idea was not to have unclean meats, but all meat in this case. And vegetables maybe better translated. Anything else generally like grain, meal, or something like that, that would still give you all your nutrients. And so this actually worked. Better looking. Interesting, some of the words that will be used for what indicates someone that looks good. You might have a translation fatness or something like that in your translation, because that was considered healthy in those days. And so, how do they gain weight on vegetables and water? Ask it. God was in the picture too, so he might have had some influence on that. And then verse 17, as for these 4 youths, God gave them knowledge and intelligence in every branch of literature and wisdom. Daniel even understood all kinds of visions and dreams. So these youths were intelligent, you could say, but who's given the credit for that intelligence? God. Something that we need to keep reminding ourselves of, not to say that everything that we accomplish in this earth is our own, because we've done all this effort and worked hard and all that. Not necessarily. God is in the picture too. We need to give him the credit and the honor that he gave us these talents. Because we know that everyone has different talents, different abilities. And we use them in our service for God. And that also, you can see that apparently these young men were trained well in their growing up years, in their Jewish families, that God was involved, and that they need to trust in him and put him first and give him glory. And so that's probably a lesson for us, isn't it? When we raise up children, teach children here in our Bible classes, make sure that we don't overly praise them for their own ability and their own doing so much that God is out of the picture. If we don't include God, they will notice that. It will have an effect on them as they get older, thinking that they're so great. What do you think? So, Daniel even has this ability to understand visions and dreams. That's mentioned here probably more because that's going to come out in the future. At this point in time, no one probably really knew that. So, verse 18. Then at the end of the days which the king had specified for presenting them, the commander of the officials presented them before Nebuchadnezzar. The king talked with them, and out of them all, not one was found like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So they entered the king's personal service. And as for every matter of wisdom and knowledge, wisdom and understanding about which the king consulted them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and conjurers who were in all his realm. first year of Cyrus the king. And we talked about that before. Daniel actually lives a fairly long life. I figure at least into his 80s. He'll be around later on in the time of Cyrus when the captives are free and are able to return to their land. And so the king is very pleased. And it was interesting, 10 times better than all these other people that they're dependent on, I guess you could say. Again, you know that God made that possible. Okay, that finishes up the first chapter. Let's go on to the second chapter here. Now, in the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar had a dream, and his spirit was troubled, and his sleep left him. Then the king gave orders to call in the magicians, the conjurers, the sorcerers, the Chaldeans to tell the king his dreams. So they came in and stood before the king. The king said to them, I had a dream, and my spirit is anxious to understand the dream. So now in the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign as king, and people get all tied up, tangled as far as trying to figure out how do you count these years and things like that. And so in a sense here, it's probably more like the second year is he's ruled 2 full years, and he's continuing on into the third year. And so that would give Daniel and his companions 3 years of training under him. So probably around 601, 602 BC time period when this dream occurs. Unable to sleep. Do you think there's an effect on knowing God that might help in being able to sleep better, especially under these conditions? If you don't have anything beyond what's in this life, all these strange dreams might cause you to get worried and anxious. And so here's this king who still doesn't really know about, he's at least not going to accept that God is in control, definitely. And so now he's having these dreams, and he's having trouble sleeping. Apparently, maybe it's something that's more than once. So he brings out the people who are supposedly good at figuring this out. Magicians, conjurers, sorcerers. And some of these are, you could say, the priests to their various gods. People who are astrologers, things like that. Trying to find something that can give them the answer that will answer questions for you other than God. Just for a spoiler, our VBS is going to start with something like that in the very first lesson. It covers things of that sort in our skit. One of the characters consulting something other than God for answers to questions. That's just to get you wondering what we're going to be doing. So the king said, okay, we can tell us what your dream was or something like that. We'll come up with an explanation. So what happened in verse 4? Then the Chaldeans spoke to the king in Aramaic. And so at this point, this actually occurs in the text, in the writing, original translation. point it goes into Aramaic, that continues on till later, and actually to, well, in the next chapter. Talk about that later. Of course, then the question is, is this Aramaic, the style of language that was used at that time, and stuff like that, people arguing with that. Okay, so Aramaic, okay, live forever, tell the dream to your servants, and we will declare the interpretation. The king replied to the Chaldeans, the command from me is firm. If you do not make known to me the dream and its interpretation, you will be torn limb from limb, and your houses will be made a rubbish heap. But if you declare the dream and its interpretation, you will receive from me gifts and reward and great honor. Therefore declare to me the dream and its interpretation. So what do you do if someone asks you that one? They had a dream, but you have to tell them what the dream is about.
Kind of high expectations.
They're only hoping maybe the king doesn't actually remember his dream, and you can say anything, and if it sounds good, it might go by. It doesn't seem like that's the case here. This dream made him worried, and it appears that he probably had it multiple times. So I think the king knows what his dream was. So then in verse 7, they answered the second time and said, let the king tell the dream to his servant, and we will declare the interpretation. The king replied, I know for certain that you are bargaining for time, inasmuch as you have seen the command from me is firm, that if you do not make the dream known to me, there is only one decree for you. For you have agreed together to speak lying and corrupt words before me until the situation is changed. Therefore, tell me the dream, that I may know that you can declare to me its interpretation. The Chaldeans answered the king and said, there is not a man on earth who could declare the matter for the king, inasmuch as no great king or ruler has ever asked anything like this of any magician or conjurer or Chaldean. Moreover, the thing which the king demands is difficult, and there is no one else who could declare it to the king except the gods, whose dwelling place is not with mortal flesh. So the king is going to put them to the test to find out if these people really can do what they say they can do. They have to tell them what the dream was about. And then that will give more credence to whatever interpretation that they give to it. And so this Aramaic that continues on here from verse 4 until chapter 7, verse 28 is considered more formal language that would be used by the king. And so that's maybe one reason why it switches over to that for this portion. What happens if they can't tell the king what the dream was about? This king is known. He doesn't have any problem with killing people. And eliminating everything involved in it. In their families. But he does offer gifts and rewards for one who can tell the dream and its interpretation. So they're basically now accused of lying for what they've done in the past, and so they're going to have to do something to prove themselves otherwise. But everyone realizes that no one on earth can do this. Notice that. Do you think there's still people around nowadays that think that they have some kind of power to be able to tell things that they shouldn't, there'd be no reason that they know anything about? Seems like that still comes up even today. There's people who, a lot of people who believe in these special powers are nothing related to God. So we still have astrologers, crystal balls, and little toys called magic 8 ball. So this would include even Daniel and his companions might be at risk for what's going on in the earth. And what do you think about people in leadership making threats like this and getting angry very easily? Well, not a good thing. Nebuchadnezzar will get more lessons in the future. Okay, so verse 12, because of this the king became indignant and very furious and gave orders to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. So the decree went out forth that the wise men should be slain. And they looked for Daniel and his friends to kill them. In verse 14, then Daniel replied with discretion and discernment to Arioch, the captain of the king's bodyguard, who had gone forth to slay the wise men of Babylon. He said to Arioch, the king's commander, for what reason is the decree from the king so urgent? And Arioch informed Daniel about the matter. So Daniel went in and requested of the king that he would give him time in order that he might declare the interpretation to the king. Daniel's going to offer his services, you could say, knowing that if he doesn't get guidance from God on this, he's going to be killed along with the rest of the wise men. Verse 17, and Daniel went to his house and informed his friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah about the matter, so they might request compassion from God of heaven concerning this mystery, so that Daniel and his friends would not be destroyed with the rest of the wise men of Babylon.
So, Chuck, that's what's curious to me. So, the king had called his magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, and Chaldeans to tell him his dream. And when they can't, he gets mad. He's going to kill everybody he deems wise in the country. So
These others got special training and all the what is it, Chaldeans?
nothing like being a little irrational, lashing out irrational.
They're working for him. We're going to get rid of everybody in office.
Yeah, anybody that seems to say that to think that they're wise in his court, I guess, maybe.
So what's the first thing that Daniel and his friends do when they decide to take on this? Go to God. Yeah? Another lesson for us, right? When things seem difficult, we need help, we should go to God. We should go to God all the time when things are going well. He's the only one that can help us. Apparently prayer was a very important part of these young people's life. So is prayer an important part of our lives? They're still young men. Or older, you could say wise people, mature, and all that kind of stuff. Is people would think that people in their late teens or early 20s are not mature in our current society. That seems to be true in a lot of cases. But people that age can be. So again, here Daniel is making this. He's as we talked about in our introduction material, he's acknowledged in several other places in the Bible as existing, and Ezekiel gives a description. I think we actually read that last week, Ezekiel chapter 28 and verse 3. But behold, you are wiser than Daniel. There is no secret that is a match for you. When God's talking to leaders of fire. But Daniel knows secrets, you could say, through God. Mystery. God's revealed things to him. And that's what he's going to do next. Verse 19. Then the mystery was revealed to Daniel in night vision, and Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Daniel said, "Let the name of God be blessed forever and ever, for wisdom and power belong to him. It is he who changes the times and the epochs. He removes kings and establishes kings. He gives wisdom to wise men and knowledge to men of understanding. It is he who reveals the profound and hidden things. He knows what is the darkness, and the light dwells with him. To you, O God of my fathers, I give thanks and praise, for you have given me wisdom and power. Even now you have made known to me what we request of you, for you have made known to us the king's matter." So he just doesn't say, when God gave him the answer, says maybe to his friends, that God's given him an answer in vision, that he says all of this, a lot more. Making sure that you understand that God is the one behind all this. It's not any special power that he had out of his own ability. So again, that credit being given. We thank God for the abilities he's given us, things that we may be successful in.
Thinking about Daniel and his three friends. This point in time, they've been serving the king as adults for quite some time. But even for them, at first, perhaps this command from the king could seem daunting, except for the fact that these men were the ones who, as young men, walked into the three of them walked into the fiery furnace and were protected. And beginning with the foods that they ate, as you talked about at the beginning of the lesson, they've been watching God take care of them all the way through. And each one of those episodes in their lives where he has not failed them, where he has given them precisely what they needed and protected them, that builds up. I think it's got to build up to where even with this ridiculous command, they know that God is going to give it to me. And they don't take it for granted. They're very thankful for it. But I don't believe there was a whole lot of fear, because they've been being protected, they've been being guided, they've been being provided for without a miss. God never dropped the ball on these people. And so they knew he was with them.
The other interesting thing here is that we'll see in here is that Daniel is not just concerned about himself and his companions, but he's concerned about all these wise men being killed for something that they don't have the capability of doing. So again, we see 24 says, therefore, all this happening, therefore Daniel went into Arioch, whom the king had appointed to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and spoke to him as follows: do not destroy the wise men of Babylon. Take me into the king's presence, and I will declare the interpretation to the king. Verse 25, when Arioch hurriedly brought Daniel into the king's presence and spoke to him as follows: I have found a man among the exiles from Judah who can make the interpretation known to the king. The king said to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, are you able to make known to me the dream which I have seen and its interpretation? Daniel answered before the king and said, as for the mystery about which the king has inquired, neither wise men, conjurers, magicians, nor diviners are able to declare it to the king. If we just stop there, the king would think, well, he already knows that. What's going on here? Verse 28, however, there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries, and he has made known to King Nebuchadnezzar what will take place in the latter days. This was your dream and the visions in your mind while on your bed. As for you, O king, while on your bed, your thoughts turn to what will take place in the future. And he who reveals mysteries has made known to you what will take place. But as for me, this mystery has not been revealed to me for any wisdom residing in me more than any other living man, but for the purpose of making the interpretation known to the king, that you may understand the thoughts of your mind. Daniel was not taking credit for what he's going to tell the king. It's God that's giving the credit. There's no abilities that men have to be able to do this. So he's going to talk about things that are going to be happening in the future. Verse 28, the New American Standard says latter days. That is used a lot throughout the Bible for various things in the future, but not always representing the same time. People might want to try to say, well, this is going to represent some time that they think it's supposed to represent, but it appears that in this case, latter days would be time after what's going on now during this captivity. In Zechariah chapter 1 verse 4, it talks about former days, which represent days before the captivity in that context. And so this appears to be going to be after that. Okay, let's go on. So the time left, verse 31. You, O king, were looking, and behold, there was a single great statue. That statue, which was large and of extraordinary splendor, was standing in front of you, and its appearance was awesome. The head of that statue was made of fine gold, its breast and its arms of silver, its belly and its thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. You continued looking until a stone was cut out without hands, and it struck the statue on its feet of iron and clay and crushed them. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze and silver and the gold were crushed all at the same time and became like chaff from the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away so that not a trace of them was found. But the stone that struck the statue became a very great mountain and filled the whole earth. Great statue. And even we would probably even give that description there without what we read Daniel after this, what all that would represent. So just gotta have an imagination, people try and draw pictures and all that. The head of gold, belly and thighs of bronze, and feet of iron and clay. So it looks like there's like 4 divisions here in this statue, 4 different sections. And all of it's going to be eventually destroyed, crushed, you could say. And the stone that says it fills the whole earth will become something greater that's coming. And that stone cut out without hands. So obviously, this doesn't really appear to be an earthly kingdom. I'm talking about this other kingdom that's involved. Nebuchadnezzar doesn't know anything about. Okay, so about 5 minutes, so we can go in. First part here, verse 36. This was a dream. Now we will tell its interpretation before the king. You, O king, are the king of kings, to whom God of heaven has given the kingdom, the power, the strength, and the glory. And wherever the sons of men dwell, or the beasts of the field, or the birds of the sky, he has given them into your hand, and has caused you to rule over them all. You are the head of gold. You can say that Nebuchadnezzar looks like he has the best part of the statue. He's the head, and it's actually made out of the best material. People consider it valuable even nowadays. This head of gold. And what do you think Nebuchadnezzar is thinking there? He did all this stuff to get into his position. He went and fought battles and things like that, and was promoted to the position of king. But what's Daniel saying? God of heaven has given you this kingdom. And your power and strength and glory. We can even see that mentioned, we talked a little bit about it already, about God being in control of the nations. And even in the New Testament, that's still reflected a lot. You can think of several places. Paul writes in Romans chapter 13. Romans 13 says, every person is to be in subjection to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those which exist are established by God. Therefore, whoever resists authority has opposed the ordinance of God, and they who have opposed will receive condemnation upon themselves. So we think about resisting rulers on this earth. What do you think? Nebuchadnezzar definitely was not, we would not consider a ruler who we think is doing all kinds of good things. He has all his own ideas, he's promoting all these things that don't make any sense, and he's killing people if they don't go along with it. But God is saying we still need to give that respect to rulers. And we may have poems about who's in power in various places on this earth today, and we have to be careful about what we say, because we understand God had a hand in them being in their position for his own reasons.
Just like in the book of Esther, even though she was the queen, she couldn't even approach the king unless he summoned her. And because anybody who approached the king without being summoned was killed. So they had some pretty harsh rules that the rulers had as far as how they chose to be admired as the leader.
You could say this is given on both sides here. That is gonna be top lessons, and we need to pray for the leaders of the world today, that they may learn also from God. And consider what their position really is. 1 Peter chapter 2, read verses 13 through 17. 1 Peter chapter 2, starting verse 13. Submit yourselves for the Lord's sake to every human institution, whether to a king as one in authority or to governors as sent by him for the punishment of evildoers and the praise of those who do right. For such is the will of God, that by doing right you may silence the ignorance of foolish men. Act as free men, and do not use your freedom as a covering for evil, but use it as bond slaves of God. Honor all people, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the king. So again, looking at giving honor to those who do honor, and knowing that God is also has a hand in these things. What do you think?